Well, we're joined now from Rafah by Scott Anderson, the Senior Deputy Director of Gaza Operations for the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, for UNRWA. It's great that we have you on this hour. We're trying to understand as much as we can about this morning's events. What can you add to your understanding about what happened?
Well, unfortunately, not much more than has already been reported. What we can confirm is that there were no UN vehicles involved in the convoy. And then we've heard the death toll. But I think what this speaks to is the general situation in the north, the deterioration of law and order and the security environment. But most importantly, it speaks to the desperation of people. And we know there are pockets of starvation in the north. We've had reports from hospitals of children dying of malnutrition. And I think today's event just really underscores the desperation people feel north of Wadi Gaza as they try to find food for their families.
It's extremely difficult, as we know and as we've reported, to get food to northern Gaza. The World Food Program just last week said they're not doing it anymore because it's not safe enough. Is UNRWA still in a position and still able to make aid deliveries to northern Gaza?
We are currently not delivering, much like the World Food Program, due to the prevailing security environment. We last attempted a delivery February 8th. We were unfortunately unable to complete that delivery. And for the UN as a whole, it's been very difficult. Since 2024, since 1st of January, we've only got 93 trucks of aid north of Wadi Gaza, which I think we can all agree for 300,000 people that are still living there is not enough aid for them to sustain themselves. And again, has led us to the situation where people are desperate to find food for them and their families.
And can you give us a little bit of context on the security circumstances, the safety conditions for the trucks that are still conducting those meager deliveries into northern Gaza?
Yeah, I mean, I think the situation is very difficult. I mean, in addition to the security environment being difficult, the road networks are difficult. And just the situation overall is very dire. And I think, the Commissioner General said it best, when will this all end, which we can all say we hope is soon. But there aren't any police working, any blue police, which continues to degrade the security situation and leads really to lawlessness and events like that happened today. So what we would really need is to have a functioning police force to try to reestablish some law and order, which would make delivery of aid for the UN and others much easier to the north as well as to the rest of Gaza.
A question that may illuminate what happened this morning. Would it be typical, as was apparently the case this morning, would it be typical for Israeli forces to be in the vicinity of an aid delivery?
Well, not necessarily an aid delivery. I think the location where this happened is near the checkpoint from the south of Gaza to the north, near the Wadi. And certainly it would be normal for Israeli forces to be near the checkpoint. But without knowing the exact location of what happened, I can't speak to more than that.
Okay. I would like to put to you what essentially has been Israel's explanation of what happened this morning. They're saying, well, essentially there was a crowd, there was people died in a crush, a stampede of sorts. And therefore, Israel is not directly responsible for this, for most of the Palestinian deaths this morning. Is that something that you can speak to? I mean, the wider context of the level of desperation that Palestinians have when they do get that trickle of aid coming in?
I mean, I don't think any of us can speak to intent or what happened if we weren't there. But as I said before, what we can speak to is that it's a very desperate situation north of Wadi Gaza. There are still 300,000 people living there, trying their very best to take care of themselves and their families. But you have a very desperate situation with pockets of starvation. And when people are that desperate, it will lead to tragic events like happened this morning, where we had significant loss of life, significant injuries. And what we need to do is get aid to the north somehow at scale, which, hopefully we can get another crossing open so we can enter the north from the north. And that would allow the UN and others to move things in at scale and begin to address the pockets of starvation, the malnutrition, and the other challenges that we face.
Scott Anderson, Senior Deputy Director of Gaza Operations for UNRWA. Thank you very much for joining us this hour. Israel has seized nearly 3 square kilometers of Palestinian land near an illegal settlement in the occupied West Bank. The move will establish a new settlement near Ma'ale Adumim, near occupied East Jerusalem. An estimated 40,000 Israeli settlers live there. Settler expansion is illegal under international law, yet it has ramped up significantly since the war on Gaza began in October. Let's bring back Bernard Smith, who's standing by in occupied East Jerusalem. Bernard, why is Israel taking this land?
So, all settlements are illegal under international law, but Israel distinguishes between settlements and what it calls illegal outposts. Last summer, 10 illegal outposts by the cabinet were approved to become full settlements, and the first of those has now been signed off by the Israeli military. Now, the timing of this is fascinating because only on Monday we were in The Hague wrapping up 6 days of hearings where almost 50 countries had argued before the International Court of Justice that Israel's occupation of the West Bank should be declared illegal because continuous, rampant, excessive or continuing settlement construction and Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank was preventing the Palestinians from self-determination and creating a Palestinian state. Well, there you've seen directly the Israelis ignoring really international calls, UN calls to stop settlements. The US was given the thankless task of defending Israel's occupation in front of the court, saying this should be left to the UN and the Israelis and the Palestinians to negotiate directly. Well, there again, we have evidence today the Israelis ignoring UN calls not to increase settlement construction, and the Palestinians saying, look, this is why we have to go to the ICJ, because Israel just keeps ignoring calls to stop settlement construction.
Bernard Smith reporting from occupied East Jerusalem. Thank you, Bernard. Israel says that 2 Israeli settlers and 1 Palestinian gunman have been killed in a shooting at a petrol station in the occupied West Bank. The incident took place at the entrance to the illegal settlement that's north of Ramallah. Israeli media says the army has blocked off roads in the area as they search for possible additional shooters. Let's bring in Zein Basravi. Zein, you're in Ramallah, in the occupied West Bank. Tell us more about this shooting. What do you know?
Well, we heard about this about 3 hours ago at about 5:33 p.m. local time. A Palestinian man, seemingly in his 20s or 30s, armed with what appears to be an automatic assault rifle, possibly an American M16, according to the videos that we've seen. He arrived at that gas station at Ali, opened fire, killed 2 Israelis, another Israeli gunman at the scene, then shot and killed this Palestinian man. It's not the first time an incident like this has taken place at this specific gas station. June last year, in a similar attack, 4 Israelis were killed. The 2 Palestinian gunmen involved were also killed, one at the scene, one later on down the road near Tubas. Now, there was another incident earlier today in which a Palestinian man was killed, 2 others injured when, during this incident west of Hebron, according to locals witnessing the incident there, these men were trying to cross a barrier either to get to work or to collect wild herbs for food and were shot for being at that place on that land.
And of course, when shootings like this occur, the story never ends there. What are you looking out for next? What do you think happens from now?
Well, we've already seen settlers take to social media calling for retaliation, saying they should not be silent. Palestinian communities are expecting some kind of retaliation, some kind of response. Some of the areas between Ramallah and Nablus where Palestinians drive back and forth, there's already been settler attacks on at least 3 vehicles there. Cities in north of Ramallah, around Ramallah, places like Sinjar, Turmus, Aya, the municipalities there have started to open their doors to Palestinians too afraid to travel by road back home, or people stuck in limbo in between places because of road closures, because of settler attacks. So we're already seeing Palestinians being stranded because of those roadblocks as the Israeli forces continue to carry out manhunts. And locals have also spotted military cars, vehicles moving towards Khan refugee camp south of Ramallah, where the shooter involved in the attack at Elliot was thought to have come from. Now, whenever incidents like this happen, Palestinians say collective punishment is always part of the problem. The shooter's family and friends are identified, detained, questioned, harassed. Oftentimes, the family home is marked for demolition. So the expectation is that it will be a potentially busy and a busy night in the Khan refugee camp for the residents there.
Zein Basravi reporting from Ramallah. Thank you very much.